This 10-step automation that I built in Make can save me enough money and enough time to replace a full-time employee. This automation runs 98% of my newsletter. All I have to do is copy and paste the content from my Notion after it all generates into my newsletter and send it off. Now, this process takes about 45 seconds to complete, and it would have taken me a couple hours had I written the newsletter by myself. So I'm going to show you how to build this, but first I just want to show you how this actually works. That way you can see if this is something you want to implement in your workflow, or if you want to take ideas from it and automate something else with the things that I'm going to be giving you today. So first off, we need to go back to automation 1 of 1. As you can see, this is newsletter automation 2 of 2. If I go back here and I select newsletter automation 1 of 2, what this is doing is this is a module from an app called RSS.app. I'm going to get into that a little bit later when we're actually building this, but this app is just watching for YouTube video uploads on my channel in specific. Every single time I upload a video, this is always watching for those feed items. So it can automatically send that video to my Notion database. It can send the video title, the URL. That way I can actually have a filtration system and see, do I want to create a newsletter out of this? So after it watches for this video, once I upload a video, it'll send it to my Notion database. And this is the Notion database that it's sending it to. As you can see, I have a beautiful little format right here with newsletter ideas, in progress, complete. As you can see, there's already a newsletter complete in here and archived. Now, newsletter ideas are where these videos are going to come in from this first automation. So if I hit run once, as you can see, this RSS module is going to run. It got a video from my channel, and then it sent it to my Notion database. So if I go to Notion and I actually refresh the page, what you'll see is I now in Newsletter Ideas have a video that was pulled from this automation. And I know I hit run once in the automation. I'm just doing that for the sake of example. This automation is automated, so it runs in the background on demand. Whenever I upload a video, it sends it to my Notion database. After that, I can click on this video URL, I can copy it to my clipboard, I can paste it in, and after I paste it in, I can actually watch this video again and see if it's something I want to create a newsletter around. Okay, this is kind of like that step if I actually want to create a newsletter around the video, because there's some videos I might not want a newsletter around. But if I do, what I can do is I can hit this Q button in my Notion database and in my Notion dashboard. So I'm going to hit Q, and then as you can see, if I go to in progress, this is just something that's happening in Notion for organization. You can do this in Google Docs, Google Sheets, or whatever you want, but I prefer Notion, just one place to store all my automations. As you can see though, now it's in progress, right? And our status is in queue. So this is when newsletter automation number 2 starts. When that item's in queue, once I hit that queue button, it moved it from not started to in queue, and that triggers this automation, newsletter automation 2 of 2, which is where all of the magic happens. This is where things start to get super fun. So these 3 modules right here are watching my database at all times. It's pulling in all the information. It's filtering out the items that aren't in queue. If the item is not in queue, then it stops. It doesn't generate a video transcript for an item that's not in queue yet. But if an item is in queue, such as the one we have on our AIF newsletter flow, then it will run this automation automatically. And I'm not going to have any cuts right now. What you're going to be seeing is the full process of a newsletter being generated from that video that was in my dashboard. As you can see, the status automatically changed to in progress because it started running through this flow. It generated an entire video transcript based on that video. Not just based on it, but it generated it word for word what I said in the video. After that, it goes through a summary protocol with GPT-4o, and it utilizes these GPT-4o modules in order to create a newsletter. So it creates a summary in my style of voice. After that, it creates a subject line, a newsletter body, a call to action custom to this newsletter. And then it sends all of the content back to Notion and changes my status of that newsletter to done. So when I head back to my automations dashboard, as you can see, it's no longer in the in progress view, but it's now in the complete section. And it gave me a newsletter name. If I open up this page, it says how ChatGPT analyzed my 10K row data. That's amazing. And it's in my style and tone of voice because I told it to replicate my voice in the summary modules. So it's very natural, it's very human-like, and this makes for a wonderful 2-minute newsletter read for my subscribers. It says how ChatGPT analyzed my data. There's my subject line. And then it gave me the newsletter body. All I have to do is copy and paste this in order to have a complete newsletter. It gave me a call to action. And this system is really fully customizable to your wants and needs. You can have it write in any style, any tone. I just wanted it to write in my style and tone that I was speaking in the video. So if this sounds interesting to you and you want to set up this automation, I'm going to get into that right now. Now, if you want a more in-depth learning experience and you want to go through each one of these steps very, very in-depth, because this is going to be more of a broad overview, then I highly recommend joining my AI Foundations community that me and Productive Dude have built for AI. In here in the classroom, we don't only have like a ton of AI automation systems, but we have multiple different courses: image generation mastery, large language model mastery, and we have different automations in here, such as the newsletter automation you're watching right now. And in here, I give you all the resources, such as blueprints that you can download and import so you don't have to build it from the ground up. I give you all the apps you need. It's just a really nice platform. As you can see, I have tons of prompts in here as well for all the steps we're going to be going through today. It's just a nice platform to hold all the resources and to also interact with the community. I mean, people are in here typing all day long, talking about artificial intelligence. So if that's something that interests you, I'll leave that in the description in the top pinned comment. But now let's get into the actual automation. And I might be using some resources from that school group throughout this process so that you can kind of replicate that and you can see how we operate within the community, because it's truly a powerful thing. Okay, now I'm going to hit create a new scenario. What you want to do first is sign up for a Make account. I'll leave a link in the description to that as well. Just make it a free account because there's so many operations you can run on the free account. I don't really think it's necessary to pay for it if you don't already have a paid account. But what you want to do to start is you want to hit create a new scenario. And this is going to be scenario 1 of 1, where we're actually pulling in those YouTube videos from my feed using RSS.app. Now, I can name this just so I keep it organized. I can just call it NLA 1 of 2, NLA meaning newsletter automation. And then what you want to do is you want to hit this big purple plus icon and you want to type in RSS. Okay, you want to tap the first option, and actually you want to watch RSS feed items, so you can just select that. And then it's going to be asking for a URL right here, and that's what we're going to do when we're on rss.app on the website, so don't worry about that right now. But then you're going to want to send that RSS information to something, or you're going to want to do something with it. I like sending it to my Notion account, but you can send it to a Google Doc, Google Sheets. Again, this whole automation dashboard that you saw in the video, this is another one of our staples in the community, right? Carter in the classroom here, if you go to AI Automation Systems, he has a full course on how to download and install this template, what it's all about. So, I mean, that's really a moat for our AI automations for the members of this group. And it just makes automation so much easier and a lot more organized. But yeah, it's a free dashboard that he gives away that he built himself, gives a little course on how to use it. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, that's where I like to send my information, so that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. I'll show you how to build something similar from the ground up. But for now, let's focus on this RSS feed items because this is what I'm pulling my information from. So go to rss.app and make an account. I believe you can get by for like a $10 a month plan if you can't use it for free. I think I just automatically started paying because I wanted to use it in its entirety, but I think there might be a free option that you can try out first. But then again, you have the ability to replace full-time employees with this workflow, so paying $10 a month isn't all that bad, especially if you're going to be using it for a lot of automations. But anyway, once you have an account, go to My Feeds and then select New Feed. Here you can enter a topic or a URL and really just create a feed around it. So it doesn't have to be YouTube videos, but that's what I'm going to be showing you in this video, is how I take YouTube video transcripts and generate summaries from those transcripts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my YouTube channel, and then I'm going to go over to videos, and then what I'm going to do is just copy this entire URL and then paste it back into the RSS app and hit generate. And boom, just like that, we have a completely new feed created, and it gives us a little preview of what it is here. And then you can hit save feed. I can even make filters on this content, so I don't have descriptions, dates. I can whitelist keywords, so filter out posts by keywords that aren't included. So if I wanted to add a whitelist keyword of ChatGPT and hit add, As you can see, only ChatGPT videos with ChatGPT in the title will be allowed on the feed. I can also do that with blacklisting words. And you can do this with more than just videos, but you can do it with articles and things like that. That's why this RSS app is so powerful. But as you can see, it says your feed is ready, and now we have a URL that we can use for our automation. So I'm going to copy that URL, head back to Make, and I'm going to paste that URL in there. I'm just going to leave maximum number of returned items on 1, hit OK, and usually I'd want to select from now on so that it's always watching my feed and it can update it automatically. But for now, I'm just going to select the first RSS feed item. That way I can show you how this works in a tutorial format without uploading a YouTube video in order to test it. I can select anywhere on the list. I'll just select you're using ChatGPT Vision wrong. I'll hit OK. And now, once we have that information, this is always watching, remember, always watching our feed. If we set this scheduled up to watch our feed every 15 minutes, every day, whatever we want. But once we have that information, what do we do with it, right? I can hit run once just to show you what this is looking like. And you can click this little bubble in order to view the information that it got. And as you can see, it gave us the title, you're using ChatGPT Vision wrong, here's the right way. It gave us the URL. So we have all this information that we can use in order to do things with, such as generate transcripts from that video URL. So that's what we want to do, but we want to use a nice dashboard in order to get the job done. So if you aren't using Notion, I highly recommend you get Notion, because now this is where we're going to be kind of prepping a Notion workspace. I don't want to teach you how to do it with Google Docs because I personally believe that is very messy, and I would feel bad teaching you something that I believe is a messy or unorganized way to do things. So if you don't have the automations dashboard and you're not a member of the community, I'll just quickly build a little Notion page, because this is what everyone will start with, is an empty page. So I'll just quickly build it out for you. You can title your page automations or whatever you want. And I'm not going to be explaining much as I go because we wouldn't have time. But Carter has like 30 minutes worth of footage explaining how Notion works and how the template works. So if you're interested, this is in the community. You can install the template. You don't have to go through building all this crap. And you get the nice course modules as well. But you can just start with an empty page. I'm going to type in /database. And I want a table view, but I don't want it inline. I just want a full page database. So I'm just going to select a database full page. And now we have these two pages in here. This is our database. And you can think of a database as like an information store for certain automations. So I'm just going to title this database whatever I want my kind of automation to be based around. So I'm just going to title this database newsletters. Okay, and this is kind of our back end where we store everything. And I'm going to add some properties here. Newsletter name is very important. We're going to want a Q button so that when we hit Q, we can actually move the view and change the status property. I'm going to edit this property so that it's not a multi-select property, but rather it's a button. And that button might be beneath my head right now, so I'll just search that button. And so now we have that Q button, right? And it's going to be labeled whatever you label the property, the button will. And now we need a few more properties. So I'm going to hit add. And remember, this is crucial if you want organization. I don't want to teach you a messy way to do this. So if you want organization, you can use Notion for free unless you're going to upload large files and a lot of images. But if you're just doing text and newsletter stuff and content, then Notion's a great way to organize your stuff. Next, what we're going to need is a status property. You can select that, and then we need to edit our status options. So for to do, we're going to have a couple. We're going to have not started, I'll make that red, and then we're going to have archived. I'll keep that whatever it is. Didn't save for some reason. Archived gray works out great. For in progress, we're going to have two options. They're both going to be yellow. In progress we can keep, but we need to add an option, and that is going to be called in queue. Boom, just like that. I'm going to hit enter, make this yellow. And then done is good right there. So now our status property is looking very good, and we have all the options that we need for our newsletter. And lastly, we want to create a URL property. So I'm just going to type in text, hit enter, and then name this URL. And now we're all set up, ready to go in the back end, so we can create a front end view and filter out our database so we can see the steps along the way. We're going to head back to automations, and this is our back end database. We don't want to touch it. So what we could maybe do is do /2 columns. Hit enter, and now we have two columns. We could put the backend databases over here. We can come up here, make this full width, and now we can have two columns for all of our information to fit into. I might even want to do a call out, make this a little pretty. Again, this is not necessary. I'm just kind of organizing things for Notion. Call this databases. And I would recommend going a little harder on making this actually look good, but I'm just trying to show you how to get organized here. So we have our newsletters database. Now we can do /callout again in order to make it look good. Click beneath it, /linked view, select that. And once you select that, you want to link this to this database. So we see this database on the front end, the same information in it. So I'm just going to select newsletters right here, and I'm just going to start organizing this. I'm going to hide my title like always. I'm going to move the Q button up front so I can see that. Nice front and center. We have newsletter name, we have status, and we have URL. I'll move status at the end. But this is just one view. I'm actually going to create 4 views. I'm going to rename this view ideas. You can make it a little light bulb emoji. Then I'm going to filter this database so only the not started jobs are being shown in here. So I'm going to hit that little filter icon, these 3 lines, filter by the status, and select not started. And now I can do the same for the other views, just filtering by their respective status type. So I'm going to duplicate this view, and instead of ideas, I'm going to call this in progress. And I can have a little emoji for that. I'm going to hit filter once again on this. And instead of filtering by not started, make sure that you're selected in this view. Filter by the in progress one, so in queue or in progress. You can just do the same for the other properties. So I'm going to select done. I can have a little check mark, and then I want to filter by not in progress, but by done. And then one last view, I'm going to duplicate that, call it archived, and then I want to set that up with a trash can emoji, and then filter that also by archived. So I'm going to select that, not started, but just the archived one, so we can see everything that we've done in the past or everything that we didn't want to do. So now we have this beautiful database here. I'm going to select those 6 little dots and drag it in here so it looks a little nicer. I can call this newsletters in all caps, bold it, looks beautiful, right? And now we have a cool little database. So now that when we change our status to something, these move in their respective columns. So we have ideas with a status of not started, in progress with a status of in queue or in progress, done with a status of done, and then we can also move this to archived, and we can see all of our past newsletters. So this is a very simple setup, very quick, but it's going to help us get the job done, and it's going to help us organize our automations much better than using something like Google Docs. So I hope this little section was very helpful for you. I recommend watching it a couple times, learning how to use Notion, because it's just so powerful. And our automations dashboard is much cooler than this. Carter does a lot better of a job at actually building this thing out. But yeah, this is just a good way to get started so you have organized newsletters or information pulling into your database. Next, we want to head back to Make. And now we have a spot to store all of these videos that we're going to be pulling in. So now we can hit add another module, and we can connect this to Notion, right? We can select Notion, and then we can put create a database item. And what you're going to want to do here is there will be a button that says create Notion connection. And that's what you're going to want to connect this to, is your Notion connection. So I will show you that real quick. I'm going to add a new connection, Notion public, and I can just name this tutorial for newsletter automation. I can hit save, and then it's going to take you to a page where you can connect your Notion account. Make sure you're on the right one in the upper right hand corner. Hit select pages, and then I can select what I want to do. So I can select my entire database, or I can just select that page I created for automations. And I can hit allow access. And this is going to allow Make to connect to that database that we just got finished creating. And now what we need to do, once our database is in here, once we have that Notion connection, we need to enter a database ID. So it knows which database to create a database item from. So when this is happening, it's going to actually basically select new for us, upload the newsletter name and the URL of the video that it finds. That's what creating a database item does. So for database ID, I want database ID to be this database, the newsletter database. So what I can type in is I can do a query search for the exact label of my database. So go in and copy the label of your database. And under database ID, what you want to do is you want to hit search next to it, and then hit Control V. Okay, Control V, just copying in my newsletter name so I can get that database ID and get that all set up nicely. And then we can kind of map out our properties, what we want the newsletter name to be, what we want the URL to be. So this, when we put information in here, that's going to be changing automatically on the Notion side of things. So for newsletter name, we can just have that be the title of the video. We can change that later once we bring the content back into Notion. For status, we can just leave that empty because we're going to be changing the status from Notion when we hit Q. And for URL, we want to pull in the video URL from RSS Feed. As you can see, these are dynamic things that will always pull in. The RSS module over there on the left, as you can see, it's blinking. So that means it's pulling all of the information that it gathered from getting those videos, and it's going to be pulling that to my Notion database. So it can be very dynamic. It's like templates right here, which is very cool. So I'm going to select URL since we want the URL text property. These are all the properties that we were creating in the database. That's why this is so cool, is because you can get so organized. We want the URL under URL. It's that simple. So now I can hit OK. And this side of things is complete. We don't have anything else we need to do in here, but now we can test it, okay? And we can test it by deleting all of this information from the newsletters database, just so you can see live how it adds a completely new row for us, which would be an entirely new page and an entirely new newsletter in the future. So at this make scenario, I'm going to hit run once in the bottom left-hand corner, and it's going to find a video for me and send it to my Notion database just like that. I'm not making any cuts. I just want to show you how automated this is, because I just found a YouTube video on my channel and then sent it to my Notion database. So when I go into Notion, as you can see, it updates with all that information. The newsletter name, the URL, status is still not started. So when we go to our home page, like we set up those views, we now have a place where we can actually queue these ideas in order to run the second automation, which we are going to build now. So when I hit queue, what I want this to do is I want this to change the property of the status to in queue. So that's when we kind of have to edit the button functionality, because when I hit queue right now, nothing happens. It's a dead button. So select your queue property and hit edit property. And then here, what you're going to see is different things you can do to this. I'm going to move my head right now, just so you can see what's going on a little bit better. You can give a name for this button. I will just like calling it queue. And when the button is clicked, do this. So you can add an action, okay? And we want to change status to in queue. That way we can filter out the results that aren't in queue in the next automation. It's that beautiful. And so now we can select out of this property, okay? And now when we hit the queue button, it changes the status automatically for us in Notion to in queue. And then we'll have make.com in our second scenario, change that to in progress once this automation runs. So this automation is good. Make sure you save that, and you can set that up to run on a schedule. So it's watching a certain feed all times, or every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, every day, every hour. It really doesn't matter. But what you want to do now is make sure you hit that save button in the bottom left-hand corner next to the schedule settings, and then back out. Once you back out, you want to hit the back arrow again, and then you want to create another scenario. This is going to be the fun scenario, the fun automation that actually does all the work, the summarizing, etc. So I'm going to hit create a new scenario. And then I just want to show you the beauty of using the blueprints within the community real quick. As you can see, for the people here, we have, just labeled modules. Beautiful, shows you more in depth than what this video is showing you. But under blueprints, tools, and costs, I have these different blueprints that you can quickly download to your computer so that you can automatically just upload them. Once you download these, you'll have the ability to hit import blueprint, choose file, and then you can just upload the newsletter automation and hit save, and it builds the entire thing for you. And all you have to do is go and make your account connections. That simple. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to build it for you if you're not using the blueprints from the group. So I'm going to back out, hit discard changes, create new scenario, and I can just name this scenario NLA 2 of 2. And now we need to start with Notion, because we need to be watching this database to grab these items in order to start our automation. So I'm just going to create a little workflow, watch database items, make sure you select that Notion module. We're going to do by updated time. And then database ID, we want to do what we just did. We want to do a query search and search for our newsletters database. Make sure that you're in your right connection though. So I'm in tutorials for NLA. Now I can do by updated time, and then I can search for that database ID with newsletters. Hit OK. That will pull it in. I can change the limit to 1, and this is good. So this is just watching that database from now on. Beautiful. Next, we want to add 2 more Notion modules. I'm going to select Notion, and what we want to do is get a database item. So this is going to be watching all database items. This is going to be polling them. And what I can do is basically set that up the exact same way we did. What I want to do is get that database item ID, and we can pull that in dynamically from this module. So when I hover over these options, you can see that first module we created blinking. That means it's pulling in the database item ID and all of these other properties from that module. I'm going to select database item ID, and then I'm going to hit OK. Now we need 1 more Notion module, and then we're going to set up a filter so that only the in-queued options are being generated. We're going to hit Notion once again, and then we're going to hit update a database item. This is going to update the status from in queue to in progress. But we have to make sure the status is in queue before we update it to in progress, right? If it's not started, we don't want to start the automation. So I can hit select from list, and I can type in the database ID once again, newsletters, okay. Just like that, things are going very smoothly. Now that it has the database ID, it needs to know what item ID that it's changing. So database item ID is the exact same one that we pulled from here, but we can just pull it from this module now. So when I hover over that, you'll see database item ID. I can grab that item ID, and then I want to change the status to in progress. Beautiful. Now we can just run this and make sure that it's working and that it changes the status to in progress. That's all this is doing. And we're going to add a filter so that only the in queue options get through. I'm going to hit run once, and then it runs through all of the other automations just like that. So that's good. I had to hit run once twice because sometimes you just have to hit it twice for it to work. But it grabs in certain database item IDs. It grabs in all of our properties. Things are going good. And basically just updated the database item to in progress. So now if I go to in progress, as you can see, I created a new property, and that new property is in progress. But we don't want it to go from not started to in progress. We want it to go from in queue to in progress. So we can do that by adding a filter in between these last 2 modules by hitting the little wrench, set up filter, label this if in queue. Condition, what we want is we want the property value status from this module, the name to contain, so we can text operator, select in and select contains. We want that to contain the word queue. So we can set that up. So now only the in-queued pages within our automations database will go through. So if we have a new result in here, we only want the ones that we hit queue to run through the rest of the automation. So when status says in queue, change status to in progress and run through the automation. This is a very basic setup in order to get you started. We can test that out real quick by hitting run once and seeing if it makes it through the filter. As you can see, we had 2 items that were in queue. Now we only have 1 in queue. So this is great. It's working out very nicely. And remember, these database items are going to be pulled in from our automation we created earlier. Next, we're going to set up the transcript and how I'm actually generating transcripts from YouTube videos. I use an app called Zero Code Kit. I think it's like $7 a month. They might have some free credits you can use, so I'd look into that before you start paying. But I'll leave a link to this down in the description. This is going to allow me to run Python code. And Python code is going to allow me to pull the transcript from the YouTube Transcript API. So make sure you go down here, sign up, log in, grab your API key, which is very simple. After you sign up and log in and you're in your dashboard, you're going to see an API key that you can get. And that's when you're going to want to make your connection to Zero Code Kit. So right away, I'm going to add another module and type in Zero Code Kit. I'm going to select that. And then searching the modules in Zero Code Kit, what you want to search for is run Python code. You can select that module, and this is going to generate an entire YouTube transcript for you. My connection is already here, but you can hit add a connection or create a connection. All you have to do is type in your API key and keep that secret so people don't completely obliterate your limit on Zero Code Kit. But yeah, I went overboard on my plan. I've only used 400 executions out of 25,000, and I've overused the heck out of this thing. So I would just go with the very basic plan in order to get you started. And if they have a free plan, I would try that out first. So your API key's down here. You can create that connection. And the next thing you want to do is import Python code. Now, this is very simple. It pulls it from the YouTube Transcript API based off subtitles of videos. And I actually have that Python in my community here. As you can see, that's why this thing is so powerful, is because I just give you all the resources and really hold your hand through the process more than I already am in this video. So I'm going to copy that Python. I'm going to head back here and paste it in. And I just leave a little template here so that you can paste your own video ID. You want to paste your video URLs right here in order to generate the transcript from them. And you can pull that transcript and that video URL from your Notion property, because remember, we have this URL property. So all we need to do is get that video dynamically updated in this Python code, and then it will generate the transcript for us. So under update a database item, you can see that module's blinking down in my bottom left here. I just want to find where it says under properties value URL. Once I select URL, I can select the plain text, and that will give me the URL of any YouTube video coming in, which will generate the transcript after it has the URL, which is beautiful. So I'm going to hit OK, and now we're just going to run through this process just to show you how it's working. I'm going to hit save in the bottom left, and I'm going to go into my newsletter ideas, go into the backend database. Everything's deleted, so that's good. We're starting fresh here. I'm going to go to my first scenario. Try keeping these organized if you can, guys. It just will help you out in the long run. But I'm going to hit newsletter automation 1 of 2. And now I'm going to run this. So again, it's going to watch my YouTube, bring a database item into Notion. I'm going to hit run once. It's watching my YouTube feed, getting ready to pull that into Notion. Just pulled it into Notion, took about 3 seconds. I'm going to head back over to automations, refresh my Notion database. And as you can see, we have a newsletter idea that pops right up in here. I can watch the video, make sure I want to create a newsletter on it. Then I can hit queue if I want to do that, and that automatically moves it to the in progress stage. Now that it's in queue, what we can do is we can go over to our other automation and actually run it so we can get a transcript generated from this video that was pulled from that live updating feed. So this is going to be super powerful when you're creating newsletters or content. You want to repurpose yourself. When you duplicate yourself, you can really start to make moves because you can do the important things. You can say information once and get it repurposed into multiple pieces of content. So now I'm going to hit run once in the second automation. It's watching the Notion database, getting the items, checking if it's in queue, updating it to in progress, and then generating the transcript. It made it through the filter and it just generated the transcript. I'm not kidding, that took less than 10 seconds. So now when I go to the Zero Code Kit, under output, I can open up result and then transcript _1, and then it has my entire transcript in here. And this might be enough for some of you. You might have your own ideas of what you want to do now that you have the transcript in here. But I'm going to go the extra mile and I'm going to show you a little summary process that I use in order to actually summarize my transcript in my tone of voice. Because you want your transcripts to be natural, you want your newsletters to be natural in your tone of voice without that AI techie feel. You just want it to be human-like, connecting with your audience. So how do I do that? Well, what I do first is I select add, and then I type in OpenAI. This is where GPT-4o comes in. It's so good at replicating your speaking style. I'm going to select this module, and then I'm going to hit create a completion. And then I can connect this completion to Zero Code Kit, and we can create a summary. Now it's just like you're prompting in ChatGPT. Open up this module, and when you open up this module, you are going to have to create an OpenAI API key connection, which is simple. Just sign up to platform.openai.com. I'll leave a link in the description to that. And then after you sign up, it's very similar to how you signed up to Zero Code Kit. What you can do is you can select your model. We want GPT-4o. It's the future, baby. For max tokens, I'm going to select 0. Now, if you want a certain number of tokens and you don't want it to run past because it costs money to actually run this, I think 3 or 4 cents, it's really not that much. But if you want to set limits, you can do that here. I always just leave it to 0 because I've got limits set up in the back end of OpenAI. I'm going to hit add message now. And for role, I want to select a user because user is going to allow you to prompt in here. And now we're just basically in a ChatGPT prompt bar, except we have all this dynamic content we can pull in. So I'm going to go back to my school community and use the prompt that I used in order to summarize my transcript in my tone of voice. So I'm going to copy this, just using my resources that I have so we can get through this a little quicker, right? I'm going to paste in that content. And what this is doing is it's basically creating a transcript that replicates my exact voice. But how does it know what transcript to do? Well, as you can see, we have the Zero Code Kit transcript over here. So we can pull that transcript automatically into the summary, just like that. And I can hit OK. And now we have a summarizing post for my transcript, which is very beautiful, and it's summarizing this entire transcript so that later down the line we can use it for things like subject line, newsletter bodies, etc. So now if I run this, I'm going to go back to my automations hub, change this to in queue so that it will actually run instead of in progress. I'm going to hit run once, and it's running, generating the transcript again, and just like that, it's already into the summary. The transcript's already generated. Pretty amazing, right? From that video URL that we got pulled from rss.app. Summary is taking a little bit of time, but it's already done. Just that quick. I'm going to open it up, go to the output section, and click into the long string. And look how natural it's talking in the summary. Hey folks, so every once in a while, ChatGPT has its seasons, right? Sometimes it's great, other times it gets lazy, doesn't answer our questions, or lacks helpful content. I've got some tips to fix that so you can get good results every single time. A week ago, I posted these in my private ChatGPT Mastery and it was well received, so here we go. And this, for most people, would be a good newsletter. Now, I get really spicy in this course, right? I create different newsletter protocols for summary, subject line, newsletter body, call to action. Process would be very similar for you, right? I just would pull in this summary to the exact modules that I created. Like I would create another module, I would clone this, just like this, and I would call this something like subject line. And I would just make this prompt based on creating good subject lines. And instead of pulling in the transcript, what I would do is I would pull in the result, okay? I'm not going to show that in this video, but you get the point. I mean, that's all you have to do. There's not much to it. Just how we did the summary, except you're pulling from the summary instead of the transcript now. So I could say, create a good subject line around this summary. And instead of using all of its tokens on the big transcript, it's now just looking at the summary and creating a subject line around that. And then I would do the same for newsletter body and call to action. That you can get very custom. That I have prompts for in the community for how I'm doing my newsletter body, my call to action, my subject lines. But you can really get by with just a summary for a newsletter. And that's what I'm going to show in today's video, because this would take quite a bit of time and you probably want to get going on your automation. So I'm just going to show you quickly how to send this content back to Notion so that once again, you have it in an organized dashboard, and then we can run through the entire process once again using the systems that we built. So first you want to add another module, and now we're going back to Notion. A lot of this is taking place in Notion. A lot of this video is just showing you how to be organized with your content. What you want to do is type in append, and you want to append a page content, okay? Make sure that you're in your right database using that right connection. And then you want to grab the page ID. You can think of the page ID the same as the database item ID. So we want to pull the item that was created all the way back from the start of our automation. So we can do that by clicking into page ID and going down to our update a database item Notion module and just grabbing the database item ID here. And this will allow us to edit that item ID that was created in our newsletter database. So now I can hit add item under content objects. I can select type, paragraph, and then what I can do is after paragraph, now it needs the item for text. So I can add an item, content, and then I can just pull in the results of the subject line, newsletter body, call to action. But for now, we'll just pull in the summary. Then I can hit OK. So now that page is going to update with all that content. This page in here, after it runs through this process, will populate with all of that Notion content. All of the ChatGPT content that we got from the transcript. It's beautiful. Then all we have to do is copy and paste it into our newsletter software. This is amazing stuff. Okay, I'm going to head back to my automation because I also want to update the status to done so that it moves here and I know it's complete and ready to go. So what we can do is we can just add another update Notion database module. And so I'm going to head over here, I'm going to hit update Notion, and then update a database item. Make sure you're on your right connection once again. You can select from the list. And again, you just want your database ID. So type in your query search, the name of your database that you created in the beginning of this video. Select OK. After you've selected OK, this is going to allow you to create a full-fledged database item. Actually update, not create. This is going to allow you to update that database item from the beginning that we pulled. So database item ID is the same thing we got for Notion append to page content. Click in here and you can pull in that database item ID from updated database item before it runs the transcript. And what do we want to update? Well, we can update the newsletter name to whatever. For now, we can just leave it the title of the video that we're generating the transcript from. And that happens as soon as we do our RSS feed. So we can leave the title, change the status to done, and then hit OK. And now this automation is complete. So let's run through it from the top, no cuts. That way you can see that this thing works wonderfully. I don't know if wonderfully is a word, but we're going to make it a word, right? I'm going to delete this database item. Now we have a fresh database. All of our views are empty. Let's get into starting this automation. I'm going to hit save. Make sure you save a lot while you're doing this because Make does not save automatically. Going to head to NLA 1 of 2, and then I am going to start this automation. It's watching my YouTube feed, grabs me the video, GPT mentions, multi-GPT workflow, sends that to my Notion database. If I go in newsletters, as you can see, it's here. If I go back to front end, it's also here. And I can click the video URL, see if I want to do a newsletter. If I do, which I already know I do, right? I want to hit Q. Q is going to move it to in progress. From in progress, it's going to be a status of in queue. And that's important that it's in queue because with our next automation, it has to be in queue in order to run through the other half of the automation. So I'm going to click in here while it's loading, click in, and then I'm going to hit run once. And then it's watching for those database items. It's grabbing those database items, checking if they're in queue, updating it to in progress, generating a transcript, and then from that transcript, a summary is being generated so it's in a more manageable format for my newsletter guest. And I formatted my prompt in a way to replicate my speaking style, which is just amazing. It added all that page content to Notion, and then it updated the status to done. So do you think that happened? I've been recording this entire time. If I go back to Notion, where do you think that page is going to be that was created from our first automation? Not in the in progress section, not in the ideas section, but it's going to be in the done section. And now when we open up the page, look at all of this beautiful content that we have for a newsletter in my style of voice that I was speaking in within the video. It even leaves me a section where I can fill out my name. It gives me the benefits. It gives me actionable steps that I can take from the video so that people reading the newsletter can actually get the most out of it without watching the video. Now, this is simply amazing, and this has been the automation. This is a very low-cost automation that can save you hours of time and save you a lot of money because paying somebody to do this, whew, that would be a lot of money. You'd be paying them 5 figures a year, so a couple of $7 a month subscriptions, it really doesn't hurt. Now, again, if you want to learn more, and you don't just want to learn this automation, but you want to learn loads of other automations, get your blueprints, get all the tools in one place, get a thriving community of people that actually care about AI and, just have success stories. We have threads with 150 comments and people are going on and on here about AI and introducing themselves and all that fun stuff. So if you want to join this community, the price is continuing to rise, so I highly recommend you get in while you can at this lowest price. Now, this has been my automation for my newsletter that I plan on using, plan on perfecting. I'm going to keep updating it in the classroom within this community. Now, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please drop a like and subscribe. I would highly, highly appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.